Hello, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be looking at part 3 of our knee pain assessment, and we're now looking at the mobility side of things. So firstly, why do we look at mobility first? Why don't we just go straight to strength? Well, a good reason, if Mel's here, we're going to pretend that she's got a sore knee on her right knee. Now, one of the most painful things for a person to do with a sore knee is to do a squat. So typically what we'll see on a squat, if we see Mel show us a squat with a person with a sore knee, she's going to show us what it looks like. And you'll see here, it's very much like a deadlift. And you can sort of tell because her shin is like dead vertical. She's hardly used her knee or her ankle at all. All right, so if we watch her squat normally, so this is how she would normally squat. And you see how that ankle had to move quite a fair way forward, and the knee itself had to go into quite a lot of flexion. So let her come back up. Those two joints and the hip itself all need a fair degree of mobility. So if one of them is compromised, then it affects the whole chain of how it's going to move, and then that affects the strength. Now, it could be the strength that started it, but what's going to happen now is the stiffness is going to keep it there, and it's going to protect itself by not moving properly. So if we watch Mel do that squat again, that was the poor one, just watch how her ankles hardly move. Like there's just no movement. It's all through the hip, which is good for the hip, but she's going to get no strength through the knee there, all right? So we really need to build some strength through those quads. Now, if you watch her again on the next one, on a good one, see how that knee's come forward, right? So now she needs that stability and strength there. Now, if she faces us, I'm going to explain the joint-by-joint approach. So at her feet, because her feet are the first thing to move, if the ankle itself is compromised and its main primary focus is mobility, the knee joint itself is then going to be compromising its stability when it's forced into a movement. So if she goes in single leg stance now and that ankle's locked up and then she has to move in a way to, let's say she's going to bend down, so the knee itself is going to start to move around. It's going to lose its stability because the ankle doesn't have the mobility to do some of the movement it should have been doing. So you can sort of see why we need to improve that ankle before we address any strength deficit at the knee itself. And then above the knee, we also need to look at the hip, because if the hip's not moving well. So if she stands side on again to us and shows us like a posterior tilt of the pelvis, so the bum's sort of going to tuck under, yep. And then this is another way we see it, and then the person squats down, going straight down, and so this person's going to have a lot of knee pain. So they're getting a huge amount of flexion through the knee and the ankle, but they're getting nothing through the hip. All right, so that's the reverse of the one we saw before. All right, so we know that we're going to have to look above the knee and below the knee for mobility restrictions. All right, so how we do this? So the first thing we're going to do is the ankle one. So Mel's going to go over to the wall. So all these stretches are shown to you as if you're on your own, because a lot of the time I show people things where I'm doing it for them. And this is a very simple knee to wall, so you can see how she's pulling her toe back away from the wall, only to a point where her heel doesn't lift. If her heel lifts off the ground here, then she's gone too far, so she has to move in. So you see that heel lifting? That's no good, all right? And the way I normally might do that is I might put a bit of tape on the ground and then put a ruler grid and measure out how far away from the wall. She should be able to get 8 to 10 centimetres. All right, so that'd be our first test, and the test itself becomes an exercise. If, let's say she does the other leg and we test it and compare it, and the other one's significantly better, then we know that there's a deficit there that must be addressed. If there's no deficit, then we say, okay, it must be okay. If they're both bad, then they both need to be done, all right? But that'd be my first point of call. Next thing itself is the knee. Now, I might get her to lie on her back first, and I do this quite a bit with people with ACL injuries, so she'll bend both her knees, and I'll just get her to gently slide her heels towards her butt. Yeah, and we'll just try to create that knee. Now, if she stops early on, let's say that right knee has to extend out a bit further so that heel slides away from her. So move towards the wall, the right foot, Mel. Yep. And let's say that one's there and that left one goes right up close to her butt. And we can sort of, this is a very easy way to measure knee flexion without too much pain. All right, I could also put her legs up on the wall if I wanted to. But the first thing I'm trying to do is, does she have full range of that knee? So the best stretch or test and stretch is using a Swiss ball, and Mel's going to show you how she does that. Because remember, you don't have a partner with you. It's difficult, and she might need to roll up a mat. Sometimes people have pain kneeling on the joint itself, so you might want to really put a soft cushion underneath. And if you don't have a Swiss ball, you could easily use a couch or something like that. But she's basically going to try and create that position where that it's really closed off. You can see there's a distance between her heel and her butt there. A person with good range would have it right up stiff close, really close to it, and you would see a big straight line, and they'd be able to reach back to touch the ball as well. All right, so that'll be our first thing. If she doesn't have that, so a common person we see with significant, it'll be something like this, and that's the range they have through their knee. If they don't have that range, that was what they should have, they'll squat like we saw Mel before, and they squatted poorly because they just can't bend the knee correctly. Now, we've looked at the ankle, we looked at the knee, now we look at the hip. Remember, the ankle and the hip are the key. So there's several things with the hip we look at. First one, she's just going to do a simple like pulling, and this is almost a lower back glute stretch, to be honest. The next one that I want her to do, though, is probably a bit more beneficial, and this is well, she's going to put both the feet down. No, she's going to put the right and then the left foot across the knee there. There you go. And then very slowly she just takes it across. This sort of gets the hip muscle. That's usually a very big problem one. And we would again get her to test the left and the right to compare. So she'll do her left leg. And then we say, okay, which one's the better one? And you know, and if you notice an obvious difference, then you know that there's a problem. If they're the same, then it's not so bad. You might be looking more at the ankle, or it could be all stability problems for that matter. All right, but the thing is we need to test it. Last one I might want to look at is doing it face down on the floor. And the giveaway on this is that shin on that right leg there. See how it goes back on a sharp angle towards it? If she had really good mobility in that hip, it would be on a, and there's just no way that Mel's going to be able to do that, but she'd be able to get that on a parallel line. It'd be almost like right behind her hands. And from side on, she needs to keep a neutral posture with her pelvis there, so it keeps the natural curve. All right, but in this case, we would know there's some stiffness in that hip that needs to be addressed. And the last one we'd look at is the thoracic, which we haven't spoken anything about, but it's always a factor, and we just want to rule it out. So, and Mel's got really good mobility here, and she's just rotating all the way around. So these are all simple tests. There's obviously a few more, but these are the ones that would really highlight to me, okay, if there's a deficit there, I need to work on it. All right, and that would be my mobility assessments in a very basic scale. Like I said, I might have to add some depending on the person, but these simple ones would tell me, okay, there's something wrong there, I need to work on it. All right, hope you've enjoyed that video, and we'll see you in the next one.